welcome to another digital art class. This one I'm going to do a small daisy actually, and it's going to be a fairly simple, straightforward design. And I've pre-selected my palette. I have all my colors in here already, as I say, pre-selected. And you'll notice that I've actually created a dark sort of yellow border. And I did this ahead of time, mainly to constrain the proportions and to give me some kind of a general area in which to work. I did previously choose the, you can see where I'm pointing here to the grid lines, but I wasn't happy with the way that they were laid out. I just wanted to keep it fairly simple, just created a simple box, and this is the area that I'm going to work with today. So I'm going to increase this just a little bit. I'm on a new layer, and I've got a very pale yellow color that I've selected, and with that I'm just going to create sort of a background in here, sort of a there we go, get a pen, just a basic brush here, and I'm just going to create sort of a background in a sort of a roundish shape. This is going to have a look of impressionistic type of look to it. It's not a complete circle, it's not a complete square, but it's just something in which to have in the background. I'm going to start off now in a new layer using the same brush, and I'm going to select the lightest color at this point. I'm going to reduce the size of my brush here, and I'm going to keep the opacity around 80–90%. I'm going to use the duplicator, and I'm going to start to lay out, now let me see the size of my brush here, yeah. I'm going to start to lay out, you can see it duplicates automatically. I'm going to start to lay out just some petals for the flower. These are just basic line shapes. Not too worried about detail at this point, because the finer detail will come out in a little bit later on. And I'm going to turn this off now and get a top petal going. Okay, so we've done that much. I'm going to go up to my next layer, and I'm going to put in sort of an oval shape in the center, slightly oval. This is going to be quite dark, but I'm going to change the opacity in a second or two. And all I want to do is maybe just drop it down a bit here anyway to begin with. I just want to sort of, that's a little too much, my apologies. I just want to sort of bring in the center shape of the flower. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but I do want something in the center here, because when I go over top of this layer, you'll see why in a few seconds. It's going to be essential to have this dark center in here. I'm going to go on to another new layer now, and I'm going to put in some green. I want to create a stem. This is actually going to be lower, so what I might do now is move this layer below everything else. I'm going to decrease the size of my brush, make sure I'm on that color, and I'm just going to put the indication of a stem in here. Now I've gone a little bit too low, haven't I? Because my background here is blocking it. So I'll move it up. There we go. Move it up, get it a little bit straighter, a little bit darker. And I'm going to add a leaf in here as well, perhaps two. I just want to make sure that this is going right up. Now I'm going to reduce my brush even more. And I'm just going to put in the indication here of a couple of leaves. Whoops, I changed my color filter. I want to go back to that same color. Same brush, different, and same layers the stem. We're on the stem. So I'm just putting in a leaf here. Low opacity because right now I'm just sketching this in. We'll work on the detail in a second or two. Back up a little bit. There we go. Good for a start. Now, I'm going to go above the white layer where I laid in the white petals. Choose a new layer. Go up to my gray tone, gray color. And I'm going to go back to the cloner. And now I'm just going to put in some very light sort of accent colors or accent shapes. Fairly randomized. Not looking for a lot of detail here. But I just want to show that there's a little bit of distinction between the petal and the shape. I'm going to declone now. Go up to the top. Put in a few more shapes up here. We don't want to miss anything, so we'll come back down here and refine a few of these lines. Just get them so they're a little more distinct. I'm going to turn the canvas because it helps me and it might help you. We all have a strong hand and a sort of a weak, a dominant hand and a less dominant hand. Now I'm using my dominant hand, but working behind the camera, I sometimes have difficulty with angles because I'm reaching around a tripod. So I just want to sort of fix things up as I spin this canvas around a little bit here. If you're working on with paper and pencils, you can easily turn your paper. If you're doing it digitally, as I am, you can follow suit. Okay, now I'm going to go in a little bit tighter here. Go back to my green color for the stem and the leaves. That's this green here. Now that I'm in a little tighter, I'm going to increase the opacity up to about nearly 80%, and I'm just going to fill these in. Just basic shapes. There's one. As I say, these are just basic shapes. We'll put in some detail a little bit later on. One advantage is to using the cloning tool is You can expedite your work when you're doing things that require a lot of extra detail and work. Setting out your basics using the cloning tool really help. I'm just going to put in a darkish line over here. I'm going to diffuse this a little bit later on, and that'll give us a natural highlight right in here. But for now, I want to go back to, actually I'm going to create a new layer underneath the white petals, and I'm going to go back to my gray, and I'm going to intensify it just a little on the same brush, lower opacity, around 25%. Let's see the brush here. I'm not going to use the cloner tool, but what I'm going to do is, let me see, go a little bit wider here. You're not using the cloner tool, but I just want to put in some fill. That's maybe a bit too much there. Just using this back arrow will take away the steps that you've done previously. And I'm going to reduce the opacity even more, down maybe down to 8%. And I'm just going to put in little, you probably see here, I'm just going in between all of the petals and creating sort of a, similar to a drop shadow effect actually. And to make things easy for myself, I'm spinning the design around. Just makes it easier, and if you can make things easier, why not do it? Drop shadow doesn't have to be behind all of them. But it'll add a little extra to your digital piece. And I can even change the opacity of these later on. But as you can see, it's starting to come along, not looking too badly. Now, I think what I would like to do is go above the dark center, create a new layer. And here's my highlight color. My second highlight color, actually. Let's go this way. And I'm going to continue using, actually, maybe I'll change up the brush. I think I'll go with a pattern this time. And I'll use the thorny pattern. I'll keep the opacity around 70%. The brush very, very tiny. I'll bring it in closer. And now, what I'm going to do, actually maybe that's too light. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the cloner again. I want to see if I can get, that may be perhaps too dark. Let's try this color here. That may be the wrong brush for this. Let's go a little heavier on the brush set texture. Bring the opacity way up, the brush down. Now this is, I'm using the cloner, and as you can see, I'm just putting dots in here. They're random. Using the cloner is good for this type of work also, because in the center of the flower, there's always going to be lots of intricate shapes inside where the flower gets pollinated from. just on my eraser right now because a couple of these have gotten out of kilter here. And what I might do now, the layer below, is I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to merge it. So that's a little bit, and what I may do is work with the color balance just to give this a little bit more vibrancy. Done. And so it's a little bit darker now. So I'm going to go up to the layer I just created, add a new layer, and I'm going to go even brighter. I'm not using the cloner at this point because I want to see what I've got for brushes here. I want to make sure that I'm getting something that's going to really stand out and pop. Let's take a sample here. That's not too bad. Maybe a bit big. That's too small. And I'm just creating little dots in the center here. I'm really just tapping now. I was trying to brush them in with a brush stroke, but I'm just tapping now, just to create the illusion of the area of the flower that'll be pollinated. Now I'm going to go just above the background orangey part here that I'm pointing to, create a new layer, and I want that dark brown, so I've got that selected, but I want to go a little bit darker. That's too dark. That might be about right. And I want to change my brush, or maybe I'll stay on the same brush. It's just a basic paintbrush. Lower the opacity way down. And the size is not bad. Just going to create some dark area here. So I'm under the light areas up here that we just painted in. Just kind of going back and forth and back. Just tapping in a little bit of a shadowy kind of color in there. If I wanted to, I could duplicate that. Again, merge down. And that sort of gives it a little more of a 3D kind of look. Now, I'm a bit of a fussy pot, so I'm going to go back to the original base layer for the center. I'm just going to clean this up a bit. Get rid of some of the line underneath that is poking out that I don't think does any justice to this. That must be on this layer. Here we go. And likewise with this one. There we go, cleans it up a little bit, considerably as a matter of fact. Now, you can put in as much detail or as the least amount of detail as you would like. But that is the basic shape and design that we're going for. There's quite a bit more that can be done here, obviously. So what I might do is go to the soft eraser, or better still, let's see, We'll go to the soft eraser tapered. And I'm just going to reduce the opacity quite a bit and the size of the brush about 25%. And what I'm going to do now is go back to the stem layer. And I want to just very lightly go over this in the stem area. Just try and get some, you can see the way it's pulling. I'm pulling the highlight out. There we go. There we go. So that adds a little bit of definition. I'll increase the opacity a little bit, lower the size of the brush. See if I can't take out some of these odd edges here that I loosely put in when I was first drawing it in. And here as well. Nothing in life is perfect, that's for sure. Certainly not nature or anything that grows. So to have a few areas that are not exactly perfect is perfectly fine. But we always like to try and make things a little bit better than what they are when we can. Not too bad there now. I'm going to go back to my green color, actually my highlight green color, and I've just created another layer above the stem. I'm going to select a pencil brush, lower the opacity. Size is not too bad. I just want to sort of create some indications of leafy veins that you would find. Size maybe a little bit too big. And we don't need to overkill. Actually, now I see something else. I think what I'm going to do is create another layer. I don't need that one. Create another layer on top of that, using the same color. Perhaps increase the size of the brush back up again, lower the opacity, and use it in the center of the stem here. Just to give it a little bit more realistic highlight. Now there is a brush just looking for a diffuser, because I know there's a diffuser in here. Here we go, smudge brushes. There's a flat small, there's a coarse, a bristle brush. I'm going to use the round bristle brush, and I'm going to be on the same layer. Where's my opacity? Quite low at about 13%. brush size, let's bring that down. I'm going to go over this and smudge it out. I may increase the opacity just a little and the brush size, and with a little bit firmer hit I can do that. Now what I think I'll do is I'll take this layer, put it on top of the stem layer, merge them, and do the same whoops. Maybe not. Don't want to, that's too much there. And just do this again. And as you can see, now we're working with the whole thing. Now it is getting a little fudgy, so I won't do too much more because it's going to get completely out of focus if I do that. In fact, I may have to come back and hit these outer stem lines again just to give them a little bit more definition. I'm going to go back to the top layer, create a new layer, and I'm going to go to the yellow that I used for the background, go back to the pen, or to the brush I was using before, get the opacity up high, the brush very small. Actually, that's too much. 80%, 88%. And I'm just dabbing in here, just little dabs, just to give some highlight to the pollinated area. I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit more down to about 25%. And go over to the other side and tap. Of course, it won't be as bright, but it'll give you an indication or a visualization of something that's round. So we're keeping the lighter tones on this side against the darker background, and we're going a little bit lighter on the highlights over this side with a lighter background. And there we have it. And with that, this painting is just about done. I've enjoyed showing this one to you. I hope it works for you. And I am very happy to have been able to present this to you. And good luck with it. And thank you for joining me once more in the digital art camp. Have a good day. Bye-bye.